This week, Senator Sanders received some pretty big endorsements from some pretty big groups. The first one I'm going to bring up is MoveOn.org, which they actually did a poll of its group to see who they should endorse. And of course, it was between Sanders, Clinton, and O'Malley. Senator Sanders won this one in a landslide. He got 78.6% of the votes in the poll. And the votes online was of more than 340,000 people.
Whoa.
Yeah. So he got 78.6%. Hillary received 14.6%.
I think that's a good indicator.
It's a huge indicator.
Like, that's a lot of... You gotta remember, people, most polls are a couple thousand people. The majority of them they try to bring up are a couple hundred people. You know what I mean? So, like, to have... Which, essentially, what that was a very mainstream poll. Which, granted, their audience is going to be a bit biased, but their audience leans left regardless. So they're going to vote for the left people. So who out of the left to have that much of a chunk of the vote? That is huge.
Martin O'Malley received 0.9% of the remaining votes. Anyway, the executive director of MoveOn.org actually spoke on this and said, "MoveOn members are feeling the burn. We will mobilize aggressively to add our collective people power to the growing movement behind the Sanders campaign, starting with a focus on voter turnout in Iowa and New Hampshire." So the group lists 8 million members and says it will mobilize nearly 75,000 of its members in Iowa and New Hampshire. So that's
boots on the ground.
That's boots on the ground.
That's serious.
Huge.
Yeah.
8 million, first off, is how many people are members of MoveOn.org. I'm actually a member of MoveOn.org, and I actually took part in this vote. You know, and that's...
So you're the reason it's so biased. What is our problem?
Gosh. But anyway, that's a huge thing. And MoveOn.org, it is a progressive website that promotes very liberal ideas. And it's huge that they didn't come out and endorse Hillary Clinton, who claims to be a progressive, but a progressive that gets things done.
Like Bernie Sanders.
Whatever that means.
Like Bernie Sanders, 700 different bells, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like he does nothing. Whatever.
So, continuing that, The Nation magazine, because some people, whenever I say The Nation, think I'm talking about the Nation of Islam.
Hey, that was a big thing for a long time in our life. When I hear The Nation of Islam, just comes afterwards. Plus, I'm a big Muhammad Ali fan. So, sorry, I hear The Nation of Islam.
Okay, so The Nation magazine, which is a liberal magazine, they are very liberal leaning, very progressive in their ideas, decided to endorse Senator Sanders as well this week. So they cited the same reasons most people cite when they endorse Senator Sanders, and that it's the income inequality, the Wall Streets, the corruption in politics. It's all of those reasons.
Well, and another really big reason that a lot of people are endorsing Bernie Sanders is over Hillary Clinton is because they just don't trust Hillary Clinton. Like, she's not believable. Like, when lots of polls ask, do you believe the things that Hillary Clinton says? It's like 18% of the people believe what she says. Whereas Bernie Sanders, it's like a resounding like 70% of the people. Like, oh yeah, he's totally believable. So it's like when you really can't believe the words coming out of someone's mouth, it doesn't matter how much money or how establishment they are, that's going to really affect them when it comes to actual election days.
Those are 2 of the big endorsements that came this week. Aaron's got the third one.
The third endorsement, which is absolutely monumental, and it talks a little bit more about kind of Hillary Clinton's proposal, so it's kind of perfect. But 170 of the nation's top economists actually backed Bernie Sanders' plan, his economic plan. And these are their actual words, what the Economists wrote. And it's, in our view, Sanders' plan for a comprehensive financial reform is critical for avoiding another too-big-to-fail financial crisis. The senator is correct that the bigger banks must be broken up and that a new 21st century Glass-Steagall Act separating investment from commercial banking must be enacted. And again, since they already spoke on Bernie Sanders, they had to speak on Secretary Hillary Clinton's proposal as well. And what they actually stated, what the Economists said, was Secretary Hillary Clinton's more modest proposal do not go far enough. They call for a bit more oversight and a few new charges on shadow banking activity, but they leave intact the titanic financial conglomerates that practice most shadow banking. As a result, her plan does not adequately reduce the serious risk a financial system pose to the American economy and to the individual Americans. So in general, she wants to add more oversight, a few more laws and things like that. What is that going to do? They're already breaking them.
That's huge, though. That's 170 of our nation's top economists.
Yeah.
And it actually, the article, which will be in the link, which will be in the description, actually names a few of them. They're big name people. And that's huge to say it's just modest. I'm of the mindset, thanks to the first, I believe it was the first Democratic debate, that Hillary Clinton, all she's really going to do is say, cut it out. Like, that's all she's going to do. Say, stop it. You guys don't need to be bigger.
Yeah.
Stop.
Yeah, and that doesn't work.
I don't want that. I believe wholeheartedly that the banks do need to be broken up. And don't misunderstand. A lot of people want to say that Senator Sanders wants to completely just destroy the banks. He doesn't want to do that. He wants to break them up and give small banks a chance.
Well,
and
go back to the system we used to have, which is before, sorry to cut you off, but which is what we used to have, which is again what he was stating. He doesn't want to just destroy banking. He wants to break them up into smaller banks. Back in the day, before all the big banks started buying up all the little banks and either leaving the name or putting their title on it, every bank, well, lots of banks were individual, much more individualistic banks. What that does is, hey, I know Sally, John down the street, you know what I mean, all those people in my town. They're not really big name people, but they need a new expansion in their house. I know they've been working at the same job for 5 years. I'm a local banker. I know these people. I can trust them to give them a loan because I know them personally. They may not have the best looking record on the books and things like that, and it may not be extensive, or they want to start a new business, which is what it's most important for. They want $20,000, $30,000 to help start up a new business. Well, I know these people. I know they already have so much money in the bank. They've been a regular bank member for the past 10, 15 years. Never had an issue with them. You're more willing to give that person a loan to help them better their situation. But when your bank is big and corporate, there's certain rules and bylaws they just can't break. You just can't supersede certain rules.
Absolutely, and with your point, it kind of makes a case for why Republicans need to be behind it.
Yeah.
Because Republicans are huge on talking about small businesses. What about the small businesses? This is going to hurt the small businesses and blah, 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 and so on and so forth. But this would actually help because this would give them more of a chance to get the money they need to start their small business and then to hire people, which creates jobs. And once you create jobs, that's more money for people to spend, and then it goes back into our economy, and our economy just booms because of that.
So, and it's just kind of crazy that 170 of the nation's top economists backed a democratic socialist. Yeah. I think that shows that these socialist type mindsets, these socialist type policies do work. And they've worked all over the place overseas. And people keep trying to make up this, oh, well, it works over there because Norway and those places are so small. You know, it's really easy to do that.
Hillary actually tried to make that point.
That's a load of crap.
It is.
On a scientific, it's proven that in the lab, if you can do something on a small scale, you can typically do it on a large scale. There are a few more factors, and you do have to put a few more things in there to make sure it balances out properly. But if it works on a small scale, it will work on the big scale. You just have to find the right formula to make it work. Because if it could work on a small scale, or if it couldn't work on a big scale, you know what I mean, it wouldn't work on a small scale.
Absolutely.
So it's like, this is simple, like, scientific, you know, reasoning and logic and, you know, top people who have spent their whole lives studying economies around the world state that these are good plans. So I can't stand when people try to make these like straw man BS arguments that are not based in fact, are based in opinion, and are wholeheartedly refuted by the facts. But when you give someone the facts, they either say, well, yeah, of course, you can put a spin on anything, or they just don't even want to talk to you anymore because you've proven them wrong. Like, that's not how you have a conversation about something. When someone proves a fact to you, if it's hard for you to digest, leave it alone, go home on your own time, and look it up and digest it properly, and then come back to that person. You ain't got to say they're right, but I looked it up and that's actually not bad. It's that simple. It's okay to have different opinions and for your opinions to be a bit wrong sometimes. A lot of my opinions have been wrong throughout my life. Don't mind saying it. That's why you grow, you continue to progress, and you learn from it all.
And just one final endorsement, which is kind of a funny one, given the current climate of the DNC.
Oh, yeah. And what we mean by that is how they're trying to not put in debates on major days, so you have to try your best to find them on Sundays and things like that, and they're doing their damnedest to make sure Hillary's the front runner.
Yeah. So this is funny because the former DNC chairman, Paul Kirk, has come out and endorsed Senator Sanders, and in a statement that was prepared, he cited that the Vermont senator has most consistently talked about the dangers facing the nation's democracy, and that's huge. It's kind of funny, and it's really important though, because as the DNC chairman, former whatever, you should be able to sit back, and I mean he sat back throughout all of last year as everything was going on, said nothing, and it's finally after all this time he's saying, okay, I support Senator Sanders and here's why. You know, I believe in what he's saying is true, you know, so he has my support. Yet on the other hand, we have Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who I will admit I have signed a petition to get her fired and get her removed from being the chairman of the DNC.
You do not show favoritism, especially within your own party, because that shows, one, how corrupt the system is.
She's shown it from day one.
Yeah, and she's not even like trying to hide it, which is like the crazy thing. Like when she's asked about it, it's like, oh, no big deal. Whatever you're saying is not true, and she keeps doing it. Like
it's despicable, really, and it's funny that we have an example of a good former DNC chairman, and he took his time and
a lot of threats that are facing our nation, we really need to realize are not like existential threats from like way overseas or something like that, like someone coming here.
They are at home.
They are right here at home, from our economy to the way that we're treating each other to race relations in this nation, and all of these things Bernie Sanders talks about. Like I just saw him on the Nightly Show, and he was like, you know, are there the host? He was like, well, are there any topics, Black Lives Matter, that you might want to talk about Black Lives Matter? You know, kind of just pushing it. And Bernie was like, you know, just come out and say it. Like you, especially as a black man, should not be embarrassed or shy to talk about black issues in this country. Those are his words. Like none of us should be worried about talking about race issues in this country because they're important. That's the way you handle a difficult conversation. You don't run away from it. You look it straight in the eyes and you fix it.
It's kind of funny because as we were recording this, the GOP debate has happened. We aren't going to talk about it, but I will say that Governor Kasich had a very good moment where he said that, you know, it's about listening and how do we make change happen? We listen to each other. And I absolutely love that. Of course, we don't see it happening on the Republican side. It's always quick to blame the people who are complaining and take the other people's side. So it was a good moment, and that's so true. If you really want to evoke change, you have to be able to listen to the people who are crying out for change and say, okay, I hear you. Now, what can we do about it? And he's really the only one I see who does that and who has been doing that for the longest. And that's why all these groups and all these people have come out in support of him. And
I also love the way, and this is an old issue, but the way he handled the Black Lives Matter protesters who came up there, wrongfully interrupted his rally of all people, Bernie Sanders, the guy who's arm in arm with MLK. He doesn't know anything about black rights.
Yeah.
But anyways, they interrupt him and he handled it perfectly. No, these women have a legitimate complaint. I'm going to let them have their moment. They chose to squander their moment and look like buffoons because he gave them the stage. You have hundreds, if not thousands of people watching you speak, and instead of speak, you just continue to scream Black Lives Matters.
Exactly.
Honey, you're up there. You screamed your way to the front, now use it.
I kind of love that you brought that up because I think I told you before, like, after I saw that, I got extremely pissed off. And I actually wrote a full-on email to them.
No.
Saying, like, because it was the Black Lives Matters chapter of, I forget where they are, it was like Washington or something. It was like Seattle or something. And I penned this whole email and it's like, it's absolutely deplorable. This is not the tactics of Martin Luther King or even Malcolm X. What they always did, or even Black Panthers, what they always did was that they would make their case and then they'd sit back and let the other person start talking. And if the other person starts saying something stupid, that's when they cut them off and say, the fuck are you talking about? Yeah. No. Let's fix this right now. Let's get the facts out there.
And that's the best way of doing it because the reason why a lot of Black Panthers did it is because they would come up, say a very intelligent, well thought out argument, and then sit back and watch the other person come up there and say the most ridiculous, ignorant shit they could. And like they would allow people to scare themselves. Like just running into their horrible backwards ideas. And then when they were like, okay, this is getting a bit too backwards, let me come in here and correct this real quick, that's when they would step in. But then even after that, they would back up most of the time and still let the person continue. Exactly. Until they just got to the point where like, okay, everyone's realized you're an idiot, now I can take the podium and really shine right
Exactly. And those two girls did not give Senator Sanders the chance. And I found it ridiculous anyway that they were doing it at a Sanders rally when Sanders is the biggest proponent of Black rights, LGBT rights. He's been talking about this, promoting it since before he was even in office.
Since before he started losing hair. This man has been promoting these things. Like, come on, guys. He's been promoting this stuff for almost like 60 years now.
Exactly. Like, so, I mean, let's...
Yeah, we're going back to the main topic. Yeah. I just wanted to state that for, like, reasons why, you know, Bernie Sanders is looked at as the way that he's looked at and how he handles situations. You don't call that weak. And which he actually kind of did what MLK would have done. You know what I'm saying? If someone wants a moment, let them have their moment. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, that's a respectful thing to do. If you've yelled that much, obviously you have something that should be heard. And they'll give you the opportunity. But 170 of the nation's top economists has backed him. Various websites and organizations have backed him. The Nation backed him. And the former DNC chairman backed him. And the list of celebrities and other people, it's huge. It's huge. Like, there's no way we could go, we'd have
an actual good celebrities?
Yeah.
Not like the celebrities that are backing Hillary, like Kim Kardashian. Like,
What do you know about politics?